In this session, let's talk about constructors. A constructor is a special method that initializes values when creating an object. All classes have constructors because Java automatically provides a default constructor. There are two types of constructors, the default constructor and parameterized constructor. Starting with the default constructor, also known as no-arg constructor, we have three comments. Constructors initialize the object when creating the object. Constructors have the same name as the class name, and constructors have no return type. We have a field called studentID and studentName. In addition, there's a method called displayStudentInfo. The method will print the student ID and print the student name. We are going to test the default constructor by creating an object. An object is created using the keyword new for a new student. To access the new object, we must assign the object to a variable of type student with the variable name of student1. Now we can use our object. Let's call the method student1.displayStudentInfo. Before assigning the values, the default constructor initializes default values. Numeric types default to 0. Reference types such as string default to null, and Boolean default to false. Let's run. As expected, student ID is 0 and student name is null. The values are 0 and null because they do not have a value yet. Now let's initialize our own values. How do we define a constructor? We define a constructor just like a method, but with the same name as the class name. We write public student. Notice there is no return type such as void. Declare student ID equal to 12 and student name equal to Mary. How about a print statement? Sys out, execute, constructor. Okay. Now let's go back to the test class. Line 7 creates the object, sets the values, and show us how the constructor will be executed when creating the object. Let's run. We see execute constructor, student ID equals 12, and student name is Mary. Now, let's take a look at the parameterized constructors. The parameterized constructors has the same concept as the default constructor. Initialize the object when creating the object, same name as class name, and do not have a return type. However, this type of constructor accepts values from its parameters. We add parameters to a constructor in the same way as a method. Write public students. Int ID, string name. ID and name are the parameters. Assign ID to student ID and name to student name to name. Print statement, sys out, student ID and name. We can have as many constructors as we want. Just change the parameter list. Also, if we choose to, we can bypass writing the access modifier and only write the class name, students. If I spell it right, there it is. Either way, it's okay. We can write public or without public. This time, our constructor only includes int ID. Let's send some values to these constructors. When I write student ID equals ID and print statement of sysout, student ID. Sending values, we're going to write students. Please forgive my typing in this video. New students. Do you see the error? We have an error because an empty student constructor is not defined. The first and second quick fix want to add an argument. Select the second quick fix. And we see 0 and null. Replace 0 with student ID of 34 and replace null with James. Call the method student2 dot display studentInfo. Let's create one more object. Student3 equal new students. 56. 56 is the student ID. Let's call the method student3 dot display studentInfo. Let's run. Student ID and the name. Student ID is 34 and we see student name as James. Student ID is 56. Student name is null. It's null because the constructor did not have a student name. That's it for constructors. If you are new to my videos, consider subscribing to my channel and clicking the bell icon. You can follow me on Twitter, connect me on LinkedIn and Facebook. Also, the code and transcript will be added to GitHub. And I'll see you in the next video.
Books available in paperback, ebook, and PDF. All Part 1 ebooks and PDF documents are free. Programming books for UFT. Programming books for Java. Here's the Selenium automation book. And TestNG. Subscribe to get notification of future videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.